Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov addressing the UN General Assembly moments ago as the country's war on Ukraine rages on. For his part, President Trump expressing disappointment in Russian President Vladimir Putin this week. Stephanie Bennett live with the very latest for us on that developing story. Stephanie.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah, a lot to dive into this afternoon, both on Lavrov's comments just as he left the stage seconds ago, and also to the situation on the ground in Ukraine. Now, Lavrov just taking aim just now at the EU and also NATO, saying that any aggression against Russia from them will be met with a divisive response. He also said that Russia has been and remains open to negotiations on eliminating the root causes of the conflict, but Russia's security and interests must be guaranteed. Now, Lavrov also spoke a few days ago on Thursday. Take a look at some of this footage from that. Lavrov accused the West, as well as NATO and the European Union, of provoking the crisis in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with him this week and reiterated President Donald Trump's call for the killing to stop and the need for Moscow to take meaningful steps toward a durable resolution. This week, President Donald Trump announced a major shift, writing on Truth Social that he thinks Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back from its original form, retaking essentially its territory that Russia has occupied. And the president also expressed this week his disappointment in Putin for prolonging the war.
I'm very dissatisfied with what Russia's doing and what President Putin is doing. I haven't liked it at all. He's killing people for no reason whatsoever.
And this afternoon, President Zelensky, he wrote on X that, quote, "America stands with Ukraine, and we feel it. We thank the people of the United States, President Donald Trump, and the First Lady Melania Trump for their attention to Ukrainians, to our children, to our people. We stand together, and that means life will be protected and peace and security will be closer." But again, the back and forth attacks, they continue. Russia launched 115 drones across Ukraine, targeting several regions, including Zaporizhia. 97 of those were neutralized, according to Ukraine's Air Force. And the Russian Defense Ministry claims to have captured 3 more villages in eastern Ukraine today. Meanwhile, Ukrainian long-range drones have hit oil pumping stations deep inside Russia. These are about 700 miles into Russia from the Ukrainian border. It caused a fire and also suspended operations there. Kevin, a lot going on and a lot to keep our eyes on.
Yes, indeed. And always you do a great job. Stephanie Bennett, thank you so much. Meantime, the president says the U.S. is close to securing a deal to end the war in Gaza and bring the hostages home. This ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's pivotal meeting with the president at the White House on Monday. For more on that, we want to bring in Fox News contributor and former CIA station chief, the great Dan Hoffman. Dan, before we get into Netanyahu, including his remarks over at the UNGA, the General Assembly at the UN, I want to share this quick sound. This is the president on Russia. And the reason I wanted to start there is in part because of your experience as a station chief there, but also because there seems to be a little shift here in the messaging from the White House. Listen to this.
I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger, but Russia spent millions and millions of dollars in bombs, missiles, ammunition, and lives, their lives, and they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop.
And the president went on to say, Dan, listen, we'll just keep selling the UN and NATO and other folks all the material they need. What they do with it at that point is on them. What's the calculus here from your perspective?
Well, I think that's a pretty clear commander's intent from President Trump. He wants the war to end now. And the way to do that is to stop the Russian army at the point of attack. President Trump has tried moral suasion. You heard it just there in some of the comments he made about the massive number of casualties that Russia has suffered and that they have inflicted upon innocent Ukrainians. And also, he's tried to entice Russia to a commercial reset with the United States and the West. Putin isn't interested in those things. And so I think it falls to President Trump's intelligence community. They're the ones that call the balls and the strikes to help assess the Secretary of State, help assess the value of secondary sanctions, of further military assistance to Ukraine to stop Russia, and then other measures like Germany providing the Ukrainians with long-range Taurus missiles that would help the Ukrainians strike inside Russian territory. and also what Europe might do with the $300 billion of frozen Russian central bank assets. That could be used very effectively to pay for U.S. munitions. We would be the arsenal for democracy. So I think the president's intent is clear, and the work is now set to be done by Secretary of State Rubio and the intelligence community working in concert.
Yeah, very interesting strategy. That, and along with the economic pressures you point out, pressure on India, pressure on China, the main benefactors financially for Russia, to say nothing of their energy purchases coming out of Europe, keep squeezing and tightening the noose around what they're trying to do, and maybe, just maybe, that's the way to go to bring them finally to the table to negotiate a respectful end to the conflict. Let me get you on this, Dan. This week, you probably saw Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. Of course, he's coming to the White House on Monday. He was over at the UNGA, and he was trying to explain why. When people say, well, the Israelis are beating up on the Gazans and they're out of line, he's saying, what would you do if what happened to us happened to you? Listen to this.
Imagine a regime, a terror regime, dispatching thousands of terrorists to invade the United States. They massacre 40,000 Americans. They take 10,000 Americans hostage. What do you think America would do?
To be clear, he's talking about battling Hamas, not taking aim at the Gazans themselves. 30 seconds or so, your thoughts on what he had to say there and what you're looking forward to this week as he comes to the White House.
Look, this is a wickedly complex diplomatic challenge for Secretary Rubio and his support to the president. Prime Minister Netanyahu wants not just to defeat Hamas, but to eliminate them. He wants the hostages released, and he wants Hamas to play no future role in Gaza or the West Bank. He said he doesn't want there to be a Palestinian state either. That's going to drive a wedge between him and the Gulf states, which is antithetical to U.S. national security interests. Therein lies the challenge, I think, going ahead this week for the Trump administration.
This is why we always love having you. You understand all the moving parts. It's not easy, to say the least. If there's a more capable person in the room than Marco Rubio, I don't know who that is, so we'll have to see how it all works out. The great Dan Hoffman, thank you for your time this weekend. Have a good one.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a great day.
Appreciate you.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.